better than your currency. Splurging millions, buying houses like Monopoly. Fucking 9 to 5, man, the money is a joke to me. Buying cryptocurrency, my money in the privacy. I make it rain dollars.
Hey guys and girls, welcome to this week's episode of the No BS with Birchy podcast. I'm your host, Nathan Birch, and this is the show unraveling the truth to the facade of the 21st century. We're now exiting the matrix and waking up to motherfucking reality. Thanks for tuning in again this week, guys and girls. Today, I'm going to be answering questions in from the community. So I've got a list of questions here asked from you guys. I literally have not read them. I'm getting them put up on the slides, so it will up on my screen so I can answer them and give you real-time, off the top of the head, feedback as to what I do in your situation. So let's see how many we can get through. This might be something we could do over 2 weeks because there is a lot of questions from the community. So thanks a lot for reaching out, everyone, and we'll get straight into it. First question here is how do you know a property is primed for growth, and what are the factors you look out for? Look, I'm actually a contrarian investor, so when I look at assessing a deal or running through numbers, I'm looking at many different variables. There's 3 things I've always talked about, which is below market value, upside for capital growth, and a strong cash flow. So the property must have those 3 things before I look at it. But ultimately, there's a few things that I look at for growth. So some markets, like most people look at property deals, and I think I've probably spoken, to the community members, at least 10,000 people over the last decade that I've spoken to, just in map sessions that we've done, like myself, in the business. And from chatting with investors, like a lot of people say, I'm looking at buying in this area because the property market has gone up by 10% each year for the last few years, or I want to buy in a market which is guaranteed to have growth because it's had growth for a very long time. And a lot of people look at growth from different aspects, and I'm a contrarian investor, so I see things very differently. When I'm looking at properties and assessing them for deals, I'm actually scared when I see a market that's gone up so consistently. The reason being is that the upside potential has been already had from the other party. The counterparty risk and the downside risk from me buying that property at the heightened new high, the property's never been at that value beforehand. So there's a good chance for it to go down, but it's got price exploration to go up to the new levels. How much higher can it go? So when I'm looking at properties, I'm not looking at the existing growth that it's had, and sometimes I'm looking at growth which has been negative and looking at that as a positive. So what I mean by that is, if we look at the Sydney property market, a lot of people will think, it's 2021, and we'll look back to 2020 or 2019 or 2018 or 2015 or whatever. I'm going all the way back decades ago. When I first started looking at property, it was 1998. It was last millennium, actually. Some of my listeners weren't even born then. But wow, I feel old. But looking at property prices back in 1998 and 2000 and 2003, we had a big property boom in Sydney, for example, which peaked in 2003. And let's just use a property out in Western Sydney. House prices in Western Sydney hit around the $300,000 mark in 2003. And the market went backwards from 2003 to about 2007 when the GFC came through. Interest rates had hit to about 9% interest rate. And the house prices hit at a bottom. It was a very good time because when the GFC came through, we saw lots of money creation, a lot of stimulus packages, and a lot of currency creation, and the cost of money became very cheap, and interest rates went down by about 50%. What happened after the interest rates dropped? House prices went up. So in the years coming after 2008, 2009, 2010, the market caught back up to where it was back in 2003. And then from about 2010 to about 2015 in Sydney, the market doubled. And a lot of people felt like they were, superstars, the best investor in the world, all this sort of stuff. But reality is that these the properties had just gone up, and doubled from a 5-year period. People looked at it and was like, that's the best property market, we must buy there. At the same token, going back in 2007, 2008, 2009, similar investors were like, Nathan, that market has a lot of risk attached to it. The market used to be 300, now it's 200. It could just keep falling. I liked buying properties when the market was 200,000 because I saw that idiots had paid $300,000 beforehand. For the market to recover and get back to where it was, 10 years had passed without any growth. But different factors that had occurred is that interest rates had halved, a lot of immigration had occurred, there wasn't enough building in the market, etc. And we had seen a pent-up of demand. So there was a lot more demand, the cost of money was almost half the amount, and the property had not moved for 10 years. I saw that as a great opportunity for the boom to happen in 2010. So I called the market before it happened, and I called the market in 2016, 2017, when I thought the Sydney market was at a peak. And you can sort of see the trend lines as they occur, but most people look at, people were coming to me and say, Nathan, should we be buying Bitcoin when Bitcoin was $80,000? I'm like, no, you should have bought Bitcoin when it was $2,000. You should have bought Bitcoin when it shit itself a couple of months ago and it went down to 40 grand or 30 grand. People get caught up in FOMO and they get caught up in the hype and they want to buy things on the way up, but they don't want to look at things on the way down. And, that's when I'm looking for areas that are primed for growth and I'm looking for upside potential. I'm looking at, many other factors. I'm not just looking at, of the charts that it's gone up 10% last year and 10% the year beforehand and 10% the year before that, it must be a great buy. I'm assessing the risk on what will happen if the market collapses or falls down or whatever the case may be. And, the downside risk is one side of the equation, but the other side of it is can the market support higher prices? I'm looking in areas in Australia, in capital cities, where we can pick up properties for still under $200,000 in capital cities, which are renting out for $300 a week. These things are positive cash flow, and the interest cost on a house at $200,000, 200 grand at 3% interest, that's $6,000 a year. That's about $120 per week in interest rates. It's very affordable for anybody to be able to pay $120 a week to put a roof over their head. Centrelink could pay for that now because the cost of ownership is so cheap. It's funny to think that $1 million mortgage, I remember as a kid growing up, everyone thought a millionaire was a lot of money. Everybody's got $1 million worth of debt. And, most people with $1 million worth of debt don't even have a house. So, looking at the market today, $1 million doesn't buy you much. And $1 million loan would be at, 2 or 3% interest rate. 3% on $1 million is 30 grand a year, or $600 per week worth of interest repayments. So, they're just rough numbers that I calculated quickly as I was saying this. But, the cost of money is very cheap, and the upside in some of these areas are so significant. It's understanding how the currencies work, and it's understanding what the debt to incomes are like in the area. It's a lot of factors. So for me, it's not just two-dimensional, it's multi-dimensional when doing deals. Second question for today is building a granny flat behind your property a good idea? I'm going to answer this one. For those of you that have been listening to me for 15 years on social media, you'll know straight away what I'm going to say. Absolutely not. It is probably the worst investment that you could make. A lot of people just look at properties and go, well, I can build a granny flat for $100,000 and I can get myself an extra $300 per week. There's a few variables you have to factor in on that. Firstly, you're overcapitalizing on your existing property. If you spend $100,000 or $150,000, are you adding $150,000 value to your property? And if you are, what's really the upside? You're just overcapitalizing by spending that money, and the property's only going to go up. If I was spending $150,000 on a property, I'd want to see double or triple a return on that money. So if I was spending $150 grand, I'd want to see a $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 growth to that asset. So if you can't feel that you're getting growth of the asset via, maybe 3 times what you're putting down, then I wouldn't be doing it. Secondly, you're also devaluing the actual asset because you're taking out the ownership, like the homeowner ownership of the value of the property, and you're making your property more suitable just for an investor. So you were sort of pushing yourself into a different market. Secondly, or thirdly, when your property goes up in value, it's the asset that's going up in value, not necessarily a granny flat that's going up in value. And most importantly, and this is the most important part of it, is that if you're investing and you're spending $100,000, $150,000 on building a granny flat in your backyard of your property, I would rather spend $150,000 and buy a whole new asset that's going to go up in value. People don't realise that you can buy properties in capital cities in 2021 for $150,000 that rent for $250, $300 a week. They're out there. There's absolutely no way that I'll be spending $100,000 or $150,000 just to get my money back, just to add that value that I've already paid, because you're just locking up money and tying it into an asset and not getting the best return on it. I'd rather have a whole new asset. So for me, I own in my portfolio 200. If I really think about it, I've bought nearly 20 motels this year. I've got about 250 properties in my portfolio, and I only have like 1 or 2 granny flats across my whole portfolio. If they were so great, I'd be having a lot more of them. I just don't see the value in them. So that's just my answer for it. But I think you can do a lot better things with your money than buy a granny flat to put in your backyard. Question number 3. Why you prefer buying from Queensland? Is that a regional preference? I don't understand this question too much, but why do I prefer buying in Queensland? Is it a regional preference? I like buying everywhere. So it doesn't matter whether it's South Headland, doesn't matter if it's Cairns, doesn't matter if it is... I'm not a big fan of Melbourne, but if I have to buy something in Melbourne, I bought my first property in Melbourne a little while ago. It was an office, actually. It was just a very cheap office for $50,000. Doesn't matter if it's in Perth or in Adelaide, doesn't matter if it's in a regional town. If the numbers stack up, I'll do the deal. For growth and for building a foundation property portfolio, I like buying properties within capital cities. So whether that be Sydney, Brisbane, Gold Coast, Perth, Adelaide, I'd like to buy in the capital cities, as well as large regional cities. So there is some opportunities that are out there where you can pick up a property for $100,000 or $80,000 that rents for $200, $250 a week. Those things can be okay. But in my portfolio, when I got my first sort of 10, 15 properties, they were all in Sydney. It was only until I got maybe 40 properties that I went into Queensland, actually, and then went into different states. So there's a fun fact of the day. It was because I was scared. I didn't know much about those markets, and I had to build up my confidence level to be able to go into those markets. And I'll buy nationally. As long as the numbers stack up, I'll buy the property. Number 4, buying an old house and putting a dual occupancy. Does it work? I answered that one already. No, I'd rather go and buy a whole new asset. For $150,000, you've got to look at what the capital is that you're putting in and what the outcome is. Very, very few and far deals does it work. And it's not my game. I just want to hold the assets and I want to expand my cash flow position every week. There's better ways to do it than building a second dwelling. Number 5, any bulk deals that you are working on currently? Good question. For those of you that are listening to the podcast, I actually realise we've got a lot of people that constantly tune in and new subscribers, so welcome aboard and thanks for listening. Some of you may or may not know, I actually run a buyer's agency, and I was probably the 3rd or 4th buyer's agency in the country, been doing it for almost 13 years now, and I specialise in doing below market value properties and undervalued properties. And some of those deals I do as bulk deals where I might find someone that's got 10, 15, 20 properties and I'll buy them all in a row and I get them at a wholesale value or a wholesale rate, and I get those properties cheaper, and then I buy them in bulk and my investors hop in and they buy them as well, and I charge a fee for that. So as for bulk deals, constantly working on deals. I've always got 300, 400, 500 offers out at any one point in time. Always working with properties, whether they're on market or off market. With the bulk deals at the moment, got ones that I'm working on, but it changes day by day, hour by hour, week by week. So hit up my team if you want me to help you build a portfolio and find you the properties. Question number 6, what are your thoughts about using second and third tier lenders to finance a deal? What are the risks, as now banks in New Zealand require a 40% deposit? That is something. So for our friends across the border over in New Zealand, understand that your lending has become tighter. It did get tighter here in Australia back in 2016. There was different sort of pressures that were put on for investors when buying properties in Australia. You have a different market over there in New Zealand than what we do here in Australia. As for second and third tier lenders, I'm happy to take the money wherever it's to come from. Firstly, I would try and utilise the big four banks out there and get every cent of money that I can from them. And then I would work my way through the second tier lenders, third tier lenders, and then whoever's going to give you the money. So personally, I think I've got about 15 or 16 different lenders that I've personally got loans with. Some of my rates go all the way up to about 10% interest per annum. I think 9% actually is the highest one I pay at the moment. And I'm fine with that. Like if someone said to me today, Nathan, I'll give you $1 million at 10%, I'll give you 10% because I know that I can go take that $1 million and get a better return on it. Obviously, most of my loans are much cheaper and much lesser loans, whether they're in the 2 or 3 or 4% interest rate territory. But yeah, if the numbers stack up and the lender's going to give you the money, well, then you've got to make a decision as to whether to take it or not. If you can't get the loan anywhere else, then it becomes down to the question is, do I do the deal and agree to the terms of the second and third tier lender, which I actually always refer to them as the shit banks. And I'm like, I'd prefer to do with the big four banks. But let me tell you, getting a loan approval, much better with a second or third tier lender. It's much quicker, more seamless, and they are more, understanding and accommodating for people's positions where the big four banks won't be. So there is pros and cons to it. Best to speak to a broker if you need help with a brokerage. I do have a finance company called Zinger Finance, Zinger finance.com.au. Hit us up, speak to my team and see if they can help you with your lending and financing requirements. Number 7, do you buy commercial properties or only residential? I would say this is just rough. I'm like reading these questions for the first time from you guys in the community as I'm answering them. This is really rough answer, but I at one point had about 100% houses in my portfolio, where my whole portfolio was housing. And then after that, I got stuck with lending. And then my portfolio, I went and bought a lot of units, townhouses and villas, and I saw the benefit of buying those assets. And I got to a point where my portfolio was probably about 70% townhouse, unit, villa, strata, body corporate type properties. And then I diversified from there. So today, if I was to think about it, my portfolio would probably be about 40% townhouse, unit, villa, strata sort of properties. Maybe about 20% of that would be houses. So that would be about 60% of my portfolio would be that. Then I'd have about 20% of my portfolio would be commercial properties. And it's just the way the cookie has crumbled. Those commercial properties range from offices to industrial land, to motels. Like I've got 20 motels. I'm aiming to get 100 motels in the next 5 years. I've got 21 motels now that are on the books. So they're all commercial. Plus I've got arrangement of shopping centres, doctor centres, infrastructure projects which I own where major ASX 200 companies lease from me directly on them, so probably about 20% commercial. And the other 20% would be land banking sort of properties. So the reason why I'm not too fussed by the fact that my portfolio had about 70% of strata at one point, and it's still about 40%, is because I've went out and bought specific land banking sites, which, for example, I have 200,000 square metres of land in northwestern Sydney. That's in areas like Kellyville and those sort of pockets. And those sites, like 200,000 square metres of land, if I can chop them up into 300 or 400 or 250 square metre blocks over the next decade or two, I'm going to be able to produce, sort of 1,000 blocks of land out of nothing. So from that perspective, I've bought that land banking to become a developer at one point in my portfolio. I'm not there yet. I don't profess to be, but at some point I will be, and that's why I've bought the land banking for them. Those properties have been negative cash flow. They're not the greatest cash flow, etc., but they've had massive growth. Like each one goes up, maybe maybe $1 million per year, or every sort of 6 months, $1 million, and there's like 10 of them. So it's like $10 million worth of capital growth every 6 to 12 months just on those properties, just by holding them. So they've been quite good properties. But yeah, the portfolio is spread out. It is from coast to coast. It is in all different sort of market segments, not just sticking to one type of property. However, I always look at what is the property going to achieve for me when I'm buying it. I want to know how's it going to perform and what task is it going to provide for the overall nature of the portfolio. Sometimes I need more growth, sometimes I need more cash flow. So I just tailor my portfolio and buy the assets that I require at that point to get me to the next level of my journey. So I actually don't care what the property is. Still to this day, I'll buy little units. I'll buy properties in Sydney for like 200 grand. I'll buy properties in Brisbane and Gold Coast, like I do with my investors, for 200 grand, 150 grand. I just bought a unit in Sydney for 270 grand. And I bought a house on the Central Coast. One of my investors said no, and I kind of got pissed off. So I was like, well, if you're going to turn down, he didn't say no, he dilly-dallied and took too long, which was a bit offensive. So I knew that the deal had 200 grand in it, so I bought it and said, that's how you make money. Don't be silly next time. So yeah, the same sort of properties that I buy for myself is what I buy for my investors. Just because I've got 250 properties nowadays doesn't mean that I shouldn't be buying the same fundamental properties. If you look at McDonald's still sells, a $1, $2 cheeseburger, even though it's one of the most successful companies out there, because it's got a process and a system, and that's what it's built upon. And my portfolio is built on good quality, affordable housing for people, and that's what I provide. So yeah. Question number 8: what is the range of price points for the properties you purchase for your clients? Good question. The cheapest property we've bought in 2021 was a block of land for $9,500. The most expensive was $6.2 million for a block of units in Sydney Harbour. Looking at the average type of property prices, probably between 150 to about 350 within capital cities. The reason being is that if you've got a 50 grand worth of equity that you're pulling out on a 500 grand property, that's 10% of the money you're getting back. But if you're pulling out 50 grand on a 150 grand property, that means you're getting 25% of your capital back. And that enables you to be able to move faster and faster. And ultimately, you want to build the largest portfolio that you can with the largest amount of assets. And I look at the properties like a fish hook in the ocean. If you got one hook out there trying to catch a fish, you have to cast it back out, try and catch a fish, cast it back out, try and catch a fish. If you have 20 hooks or 50 hooks in the ocean, you've got more hooks to catch fish on. And the properties are just there to catch equity and to be able to expand your position. So ultimately, most people look at, I want to buy a property, it's got to be a house, it's got to be here, it's got to do this, it's got to do that. I just want to know that it's adding to my bottom line. I collect assets. I buy assets. I don't care about money. I want to own the assets. The assets are going to bring me cash flow, and that cash flow is going to bring me more assets, and that's how I build out my position. So, there is sweet spots out there, but somewhere around 150 to 350 would be the ideal prices for properties. Question number 9, do you do options on properties? What do you think about that mode of investing? No, I do not do options on properties. I would. It's not my game. I know there's some people out there that spruik options. They sell courses around doing options. It can be great to do deals with options. I'm not a property trader, so if you were to do options, you'd have to find a way to settle the property at some point in the future. I just like collecting real estate and collecting assets. I'm not about buying an asset, selling it, flipping it, making a little bit of money. If I went through all this work to make 100 grand or 200 grand on a deal, I'm a lazy investor. I want to just collect the asset. If you buy the property, you sell the property, you make some money, at the end of the day, you don't have the property anymore. I don't care about the money. I want the property. I want to own the asset. So options are okay. For me personally, I actually do a lot myself personally of deals which are unconventional, specifically nowadays. Not necessarily options per se, because when I sign a contract on a deal, I'm not looking for the best way to get myself out of it. I'm looking at how I can get the longest settlement. So I do a lot of the time delayed settlements. So sometimes it might be a 12-month settlement, it might be a 24-month. I have got some properties at the moment which have got 3 years and 5-year settlements on them. So I might buy something today, carry it through for the next 3, 4, 5 years, and then pay the owner in 4 or 5 years their money. So that's a different way of investing again. I don't recommend it to investors because I know my capability, I know my cash flow, I know my position, and I know the risks that I can take with prognosticating and forecasting how my portfolio and how my position will be. For other people, I don't know what your cash flow is going to be like. I don't know what your position is to be able to settle that thing. So I don't recommend it for people. But yeah, there's all different ways to do a deal, and however the deal comes and works for you, there's how it works. So definitely be open to alternative ways on being able to fund properties and make them happen. Question number 10, if you buy an investment property, how long should you wait before buying your principal place of residence? There is no line in the sand as to when you should buy your principal place of residence. Should you buy your principal place of residence first? Should you buy an investment property first? It all comes down to numbers and cents and financially how it works for you. So for me, I see a lot of people, I just see it simply this way. When you buy a property, say you go out and buy your house to live in, you might stretch yourself. How much would that house be? Would it be $500,000? Could it be $1 million? Could it be, however much the money is going to be for the property? If it is $1 million, let's say that you're buying a house for $1 million, is that going to be your dream house? If not, then you've got to question yourself, is this going to hurt me or is it going to help me get closer to my goals? There is many variables, and this is why I don't get into the debate of buying a principal place or not, because then you've got like a spouse to think about, or children, or schools, or whatever sort of shit comes our way that you have to think about. I always think about it from the most basic breakdown. Like on a day-to-day basis, I drive to my office, the B.Invested headquarters. I drive for maybe a half an hour. I drove past all these houses. The houses are built on 250 square metre blocks of land with no eaves on them. Everyone's on $1 million mortgage. And I drive out of my house and I'm like, yeah, these houses are nice, but I live on 10 acres, so I've got 40,000 square metres, not 250. I've gone for the land component on that place because I'm going for a payday one day as a developer to build and minimise my capital gains tax and that. But looking at those properties, I think about it as I'm driving to my office and I'm seeing everybody. I don't get out to leave my house before 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning. I don't come home while the sun is up. I come home after the sun's gone down. And, I don't see the traffic jams in the morning. I don't see the people going to their jobs and, fighting through the traffic while they take the kids to school and all that sort of stuff. I don't want to participate in that world. But when I look at everyone that's supporting their houses, if you're buying a principal place of residence for $1 million, that means you have to get up out of bed every day to pay for that mortgage. If you don't get out of bed, the mortgage doesn't get paid. You don't pay the mortgage, you get kicked out of your house. You get kicked out of your house, your missus will leave you, your kids will leave you, whatever the case may be. You're on the hook for that $1 million yourself. For me personally, I would rather have that same $1 million worth of debt attached to 5 rental properties at $200,000 a piece, and I would have 5 tenants getting up out of bed every day, paying my mortgages for me, and knowing that it's paying for my lifestyle. If one of those tenants decides to be a dickhead and not pay me rent, well then, I've still got 4 other tenants whilst I deal with that tenant that's being a dickhead. If one of those tenants decides to lose their job, well then I've still got 4 tenants that are earning an income to pay that rent, so on and so forth. So When I bought my first principal place of residence, it was a 5-acre property and it was in Sydney, and I paid $1.2 million for it. I remember sitting there at the time thinking, fuck, I lived at home my whole life. How am I going to pay for this mortgage for $1.2 million? And it's funny now because it's like, it doesn't seem that much, but it was a big mortgage at the time. And it was about 5% interest rate. So it was about $1,000 a week worth of mortgage that I had to pay. And I had about 130, 140 properties at the time. And when I bought that property, I just went, I've got the solution. I'm going to go to about 30 of my properties and put the rent up by 10, 20, 30, $40 a week. And I went around to my portfolio, put my rents up on my properties, and 30 properties at $20 a week, that's $600 a week. $600 a week of $1,000 a week is 60% of my mortgage paid from just doing rental increases. So I used my assets that I had that were producing cash flow, and that cash flow provided for my lifestyle, so I didn't have to pay for my house. So I basically got to live in my house for free. And, that's how I live my life. I make my assets work. Most people focus on having to get out of bed every day and sell their time for energy and for manpower. I want to go and, get assets, and that's what's important to me, is generating assets. They're going to build a cash flow, and that cash flow provides a lifestyle, and that's why I get to live life on my terms, and I think everyone should. So on that note, guys and girls, I had 40 questions here. I've answered 10. It's a podcast over for today, and I'm going to wrap it up for the moment. I'm going to come back next week and answer some more questions from the community. So if you do, have some questions, do need some help, if there's any of these things that I'm answering for you guys and you want further clarification on, you know where to find us. You can email my team at admin@B.Invested.com.au. And as always, smash up the like button, give us a comment if you have any questions. You can always listen to us at Google, Apple, and Spotify. We'll catch up soon. Have a great week and keep being awesome. Bye for now.
Like Bilal said, man, we stuck in the matrix. This my advice, don't care if you take it. The dollar back to die, soon to be hyperinflated. This my 2 cents, don't care if you save it. Joint be decentralized and you will see you been lied to the whole time, and it's the irony, cause they do the exact opposite. You become a slave to the system, enough your money, all they do is profit. There's no conspiracy theory, you better hear me. Crypto will set you free before the system does. I don't care if you do or you don't, but what I'm saying is the truth to the reason you choke. I've never been a failure, excuse my behavior. Keep talking, haters doing me a favor. They all telling lies, I know what they been telling you. I'm the opposite, the Donald Trump of Australia. It's amazing, here for the taking. My time is never wasted, just getting wasted. These girls say I'm really breathtaking. I can't help it if I really misbehaving.